No two aquariums are exactly alike. Some people have high nutrients, some people have low nutrients, some people have no nutrients. This website, theplanettank.co.uk, has a calculator, and this is the calculator that I used in regards to the Greenleaf KNO3. It's a simple calculator. You will basically input your water volume, the nutrient that you're using, how much to add, the amount of water, and then you can specify how much you plan to dose, and it will give you a ballpark figure on how much your nutrient is going to raise. So in my case, it was like 1.5 parts per million. So the website's really nice. Going into the KNO3, there's not very many videos on it that I was able to find. I'm sure people have talked about it, but there was never really any videos explaining how to mix it up properly. And it's a something that you want to take, do research on, and just not walk into this blindly, because I mean, this is with anything. Bad things can happen. So less is always more in a scenario involving raising nutrients in your aquarium. And I did stumble across this website on one of the threads on Reef to Reef. So I was doing some research, trying to read about it, and a couple of folks had pointed towards this website. So I chose to use a Powerade bottle just because I knew that the seal would be good on it. I did label it, so I definitely do not want any chemical that I'm mixing not labeled, number one, and number two, I don't want it to be easily accessible by anyone else. So I'll store it away, out of the way anyway. So this product is very interesting. It's very cheap. I got this whole tub of the KNO3 from Greenleaf, and it was like $6-7, something like that. I chose to use tablespoons, and as you saw on the calculator, the 591 milliliters, which is give or take 20 fluid ounces, I chose to use 4 tablespoons, which if I dose 5 milliliters, that's going to take nitrates up to 1.52 parts per million. So if you dose 10 milliliters, it's going to go up to about 3 parts per million, somewhere in that ballpark. That's the way that I understand it anyway. So don't take any of this as a grain of salt. I know that I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. And I'm learning, and I want to document this and just pass along what I've learned to you all. During my research, I did find out that some people dry dose KNO3 into their system. So that's also a possibility. Once again, it's going to take some research, and if that's how you plan to do it, then less is more. But from my understanding, you can take a teaspoon and dump it into the tank, or however you prefer to measure it, dump it into the tank, and you don't have to mix it up with water. So I chose to go the water route just because I guess it kind of dilutes it, and I get a more accurate measurement, more accurate for me, just because I use the calculator, and from my understanding, that's just the path that I've decided to go down. I just want to give the disclaimer that I'm not trying to necessarily teach anybody how to use this. I'm just showing you how I've decided to use the Greenleaf KNO3. I will say that you should be testing, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So I use the Red Sea Nitrate Pro Test Kit, which allows you to test for both low range and high range nitrates. Nitrates are one of those things where back in the day, everybody wanted to run zero nitrates, zero phosphates, and all of that good stuff. Well, times have changed, and a lot of people like to see phosphates and nitrates in their tank. And if you look at some of the bigger tanks, it's not unheard of for people to have 20, 30, 40, 50 nitrates in their tank. I was looking back at some pictures, and the last time that my tank read nitrates was well over a year ago, and it was during the cycle. Since then, this tank has never read nitrates. Now, for the longest time, I quit testing for them because I ran out of the reagents for the test kit, and I figured at this point, what good is it going to do to spend money on a nitrate test kit when I'm not getting anything? So I want to get a baseline. I just want to test again because I want to make sure that they are at 0 before I go and add a chemical to that, because if I have nitrates, there's no reason on earth to even dose nitrates. For sake of the documentation and of me getting an accurate baseline reading, I'm first testing low-range nitrates, and then I'm going to test high-range nitrates. I'm basically showing in the video there the expiration date of the kit, so I know that the kit is good. There's been some previous comments saying that the kit that I have may be bad. It does not expire for quite some time, and if you've not used the Red Sea test kit for quite some time, it's very easy to use. Follow the step-by-step instructions and you'll nail it. So results are in on the low range, came back at 0. Now we're going to test for high range, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll give you the little spoiler alert, but guess what? Comes back at 0. And you may ask, why do you want nitrates in your tank when everything's doing well? Well, everything's not doing well. I've lost and I'm losing multiple SPS pieces, and to prevent that, I'm going to just try to get some nitrates into the system and see if that helps solve the issues that I've been going back and forth with. Some of the pieces of coral that are beginning to turn white have done quite well, and then all of a sudden they are starting to, RTN or STN, I'm not really sure on it, but they're struggling. So, you know, the baseline for me is the fact that I have 0 nitrates in the system. Now, I will say that when it comes to dosing nitrates, I am keeping a log of what time I've dosed and how much I've dosed. That way, I know that they're going to zero out, and I need to get to that happy medium where the tank registers nitrates and keeps the nitrates, but I don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to test every other day or every day or so, figure out if the tank still has nitrates or not, and dose accordingly. So I'm going to start out at 5 milliliters, which according to the calculator should raise the tank up to like 1.5 parts per million. I did dose another 5 milliliters, and I am getting a pretty good reading on the Red Sea low range nitrate test kit. So very simple to do. Pull out 5 milliliters. I just dumped it into the sump where the dosing lines are, just because I know that the flow in that area is good, and I just kind of let it do its thing. This is actually the reading after 5 milliliters of dosing. So far so good. I'm getting colors. It's better than clear for sure. And again, I just want to give the disclaimer that I believe it's better to err on the side of less is more, and just take it slow and see where things get you instead of going from 0 to 100 rather quickly. After testing the water for multiple days and adding 5 milliliters of the KNO3, I decided to go ahead and up the dosage. So again, I'm taking it slow. I increased to 10 milliliters, I increased to 20 milliliters, and at this point I'm actually doing 40 milliliters every other day or so. And I am still testing for nitrates every day or every other day, just to keep track of it. And as you can see here, I'm getting a good dark color. Definitely do not want to overdose with the nitrates, but I'm getting somewhere, and my system is using up quite a few of the nitrates that I'm putting into the tank, so that is really good as well. It is very important to take this video as an opinion only. Please do your own research, and please go slow if you decide to do this. I'm just showing you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, so you can better understand or choose what option will be best for you. Honestly, I think that I've made the Greenleaf KNO3 mixture with the Rhodey a little more concentrated, and that's fine. It just means you have to dose more. So I did test every other day and dose as needed. I'm not blind dosing this by any means. I am doing a test, and if the test shows no colors or faint colors, then I am dosing again. This was the low range test. Moving on to the high range test. The low range test was really dark. The high range test had just a teeny tiny hint of pink into it. So what I need to do is I need to do a high range and a low range test together and see what the results are from that. But overall, I've been pretty happy with the test results. Now, I can't speak for the corals themselves, but don't think that you can go wrong with this, because As the world evolves, we've found out that having some nitrates in your system is not such a bad thing after all. I didn't ever do a low range, high range test at the same time. Didn't really feel like there was a need for it. Every time I would do a high range test, it would come back pretty faint. Every time I would do a low range test, it would come back really dark, which leads me to, I feel like I have enough nitrates in the system to use the low range test kit and not go overboard with it. So it is what it is. And again, this is just the way that I approach this. There's many different ways to do this. Yes, you can increase feedings and all of that good stuff, but I chose to use the Greenleaf KNO3, very happy with it. The other thing to mention is if your nitrates and phosphates bottom out, you could potentially get dinos and maybe some other algae. So that is definitely something to consider. But it also doesn't mean that you'll get dinos, because for the longest time, many people ran ultra low nutrient systems. And as always, I do appreciate you watching and following along. Leave a comment below if you've dosed nitrates in your system. I'd really like to hear what you used and how you approached it. Stay tuned for more updates on the Red Sea Reefer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.